What is up, guys? It is the OTO podcast back with another episode. We're at episode 13, so thank you for the support. I'm here with my
hmm
co-host, Bannon Crowley.
How's it going, guys? You may be wondering, where has Outside the Octagon been? Or you may not be wondering. But within the past month, or 2 months now, we may have disappeared. And, stage one is shock. So we are back after almost 2 months. But we did disappear from the internet for a little while. So we are back now, though.
Yeah, we
And
we
it is a
broke the
prank.
internet basically by being gone.
Yeah.
Now this is stage one, the crash out phase. So obviously we had a banger weekend last weekend, UFC 320. One of the best cards of the year in a while, I'd say. In my mind, best card since 300. Does that stick with you or?
Um, Let me think. There's been some good cards, but potentially, I would write that down.
Yeah. But either way, banger card. If you watched it, you know how good it was from top to bottom. On paper, it was a very good card, and I think almost every single fight delivered for the fights that did matter. Obviously, it started out with the main event. Alex Pereira Poatan got his belt back against the man that took it from Ankalaev in that rematch. So a lot of questions about that fight. Um, I another fight that I had 50-50. I thought if Alex was on the front foot, if he was advancing, attacking, I thought he could drop and knock out Ankalaev, which was my official prediction was round 2 or 3 KO for Alex. But Ankalaev destroyed him in the first fight, so it really was a either way type of fight. But I want to know how you feel about it because that's exactly how I thought two healthy versions of each of them fought. But maybe Ankh wasn't healthy. Who knows?
Well, as manager Ali said, he had broken ribs going into it. A few other things. He was injured, so that doesn't really count. For big Ankalaev, but there has been a narrative to trade him that has been double and tripled down by Dean Thomas. So maybe we'll trade Magomed Ankalaev in the future. But the thing is, if he was hurt going into this fight and Pereira, if neither one of them were at 100% in both of these fights, right? The first one, Pereira goes 5 rounds. Yeah, he did get beat up most of it, but he didn't get like 50-45. Like he went in there, he won one, two, maybe 3 rounds, depending on who you asked. But then when Ankalaev's not 100%, he gets knocked out in the first round. So, I mean, you can't really use that as an excuse here because Pereira went 5 rounds when he wasn't 100%, and Ankalaev got knocked out within the first, what was it, minute and 20 seconds, minute and a half.
Yeah.
But you could tell Pereira got in there and he wanted to win. Like he just went down, he walked him down, he rocked him. That's why Ankalaev went to the grounds and kind of tried for a takedown, and then it was over at that point. And one thing that wasn't mentioned as much, those body shots that he delivered to him on the ground, if he didn't have broken ribs before that, he definitely did after that because there were some nasty punches. But once he rocked him and Ankalaev went for that takedown, it was pretty much over. And we're back in the good timeline now. Pereira is back to being a champion and potentially having a GOAT fight against John Jones at the White House.
Yeah, definitely the good timeline with Big Ank getting flatlined by Pereira, but I completely agree. When you're in the fight game, any type of fighting, you're not at 100% at the fight. You can be at 99%, you can feel 100%, but when you do a 3-month fight camp, when you just cut 15, 20 pounds a day before the fight, when you do all the media obligations a day before the fight, nobody's at 100%. I am so sick of all the fighters losing and saying, "Oh, I was hurt." I do not care if they had a broken leg, a broken arm. Some of them are tough and they go in there and they tough it out. But even if you have a broken pinky toe, if you
Yeah,
go in
I
there
don't
and
care that you broke your elbow.
I don't care that you broke your elbow. I don't. And if you go into the fight, you have to accept the consequences of fighting. Maybe not at maybe you're at 90%, maybe you're at 50%. But if you're hurt, pull out of the fight and then you can say, "Hey, I'm hurt. Let's rebook it." If you're good enough to fight, you're good enough to take the consequences of losing. I don't care that Daniel Cormier says Ankalaev broke his ribs when that was where Pereira was knocking that elbow right on that rib. Like maybe he knew about it. Who knows? But I'm sick of that. I don't know. My question is, does it constitute for a trilogy? Because Pereira is 38, not many fights left, and he has so many options right now. He could hypothetically stay at light heavyweight. There's guys like Oldberg coming up. I don't really want to see a Yuri trilogy. It could happen. He has John Jones possibly, Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gahn. He has a lot of options, so it is 1-1. Do you think a trilogy is in the question at all?
I mean, if my options right now, I would rather have a Yuri trilogy. I don't care that he's beat him twice. I would rather have that than an Ankalaev rematch. Um, Ulberg, I really don't care too much if he fights him or not. But if I could either have him versus John Jones, him moving up to fight anyone in heavyweight, him having a Yuri rematch, or him having a Big Unk rematch, I'm putting Big Unk at fourth because realistically, I mean, if this guy has a few fights left, I don't care if Dana White is upset with John Jones still. If you have John Jones versus Alex Pereira, you have to make that fight for the main event of the White House card. If that's an option, you have to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the fight I would most like to see is the White House card. You have Tom Aspinall beat Cyril Gahn, and you have Pereira versus Gahn. Or sorry, the real winner, Pereira versus Aspinall at the White House. But behind that, I don't know
I
why.
think you said that. I'm pretty sure you just said that Gon was going to be the champion, though.
No, I did not mean to say that would never happen in a million years. Quote me on that.
Freudian slip right there.
Bookmark that. That's not true. Anyway, Aspinall Pereira would be a super fight, and not just a super fight where we see it now, where Islam's like, I'm scared of Ilya. I'm just gonna move up and fight JDM. Pereira really has swept the division at this point. He's
Hmm.
beaten all the top contenders beside Olberg
Dominic Reyes.
and Dominic Reyes, who just got flatlined. But and I just don't know if or I think this is a deserved. It's kind of like Marab. I think he should move up and fight Pantoja next. That's a real super fight. It's not just someone moving up a weight class just for the fun of it to be double champ. But I think Alex versus Aspinall should be the White House, the main event. It could even be John Jones if John Jones wants to fight, if he wants to be in there. But oh, do you have something?
Well, I think what you could do, um, I think if you want to have him fight, you have him fight John Jones, the White House card, right? I think you have, if you want him to fight John Jones and Tom Aspinall, you have to do Jones and then Aspinall. I don't think he can fight Aspinall and then fight Jones, if that makes sense. Because John Jones, what, has one fight left. I think he would come back, he would fight Pereira. And if Pereira loses, I still think people would be like, oh, okay, he lost to John Jones. I still want to see him fight Tom Aspinall, or he could even fight Cyril Gahn at that point. But if he goes out and fights against Tom Aspinall, and let's say he loses, does John Jones really want to fight him at that point? Maybe he retires if he got knocked out. Like, we don't really know. I think you have to fight John Jones and then fight Tom Aspinall, in my opinion.
Yep, and I'll say it right now. I think Pereira smokes John Jones if that fight ever did happen. I think Tom Aspinall smokes John Jones. John Jones in his prime is a different story, but that Stipe fight was two washed, very washed heavyweights. Just John Jones did not look good in that fight against like Stipe was washed in that fight. We can admit that. John Jones did not look that great against him. Do you think that he beats Pereira or Aspinall still?
I think he beats both of them.
Really?
I think, yeah.
I would put money on that with you. I'd do a friendly wager on that.
I don't think that there's any way, like realistically, against Pereira, Pereira's not going to be able to wrestle with him, right? If John Jones wants to, he could just wrestle him for 25 minutes. Would he? I don't think he would. I think he would try to stay in and fight with him, but we also don't really know how well Pereira would be able to move at heavyweight. I mean, we saw that Jones, fighting his last two fights at heavyweight, that first fight against Gon didn't really show much. That fight against Stipe, like you said, Stipe was washed. But I just don't really know how well he would fight against him. And I do think John Jones still beats Tom Aspinall to this
Well,
point.
I'm gonna hit you with some MMA math. If Dom Reyes beat John Jones,
Well, he checked the scorecards because he didn't.
okay, okay. Well, one last thing about the fight. I would like to say that the tire shop, Pereira kept bringing up the tire shop. I'm
Yes.
so sick of manager Ali. I'm not gonna say what connections he had to a certain date and some certain towers and 24 years ago, but I'm not a fan
Mm.
of Ali and his stakes in the game right now. Ankh is the victim of manager Ali. He should be moving on to someone. All of Ali's fighters are just hurt so much. They lose fans. Their PR is affected by it. And he probably motivated Pereira to back him up and knock him out in round one. So I'm sick of Ali doing the talking for his fighters, but I was incredibly impressed with Pereira. I think whatever he does next, I hope it's on the White House card. I hope it's against Aspinall or John Jones or Cyril Gane even. Either way, Pereira really, we are in the good timeline, and he does cement himself in some comfortable conversations for his legacy, coming back and taking his belt back like that as a double champ from being a former middleweight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is I know that he's out with an injury, so I would hope to see him before the White House card, but with that injury, I think he will stay out until then, which is unfortunate, but I think you do if you have John Jones versus Alex Pereira and they both want to fight each other, I think you have to do it. But next up, talking about someone that is entering some interesting conversations is Marab, who just beat Corey Sandhagen and also has a fight scheduled, which he will be having his fourth title defense, which will be the most in UFC history within a year, later this year in December. I mean, we've talked about it before. I know it seems like we talk about it almost every episode now, but realistically, almost every 3 episodes we're talking about Marab. And since the beginning of the year, in January, that's kind of where I said, okay, I think he might be the GOAT. I know you were a bit hesitant last episode that we talked about him leaning a little bit more. Now, would you say that Marab is the bantamweight GOAT?
Yes, 100% sure of it. The thing that I value more than anything else is activity. I really do as a champ. I like the old-fashioned UFC where you defend your belt in a bloodbath, and then 3 months later you do it again and again. And that's where champs like Anderson Silva come and GSP, where you're like, wow, these guys defend their belt over and over and over again. And I'm sick of the guys nowadays that fight once a year, once every 10 months. It's not good for the sport, but the thing, bantamweight is still MMA as a whole is very new sport, but bantamweight itself is it's not like there's hundreds and hundreds of guys to go off of, and you always look like you could call Mighty Mouse a bantamweight, but you have Aljo before O'Malley knocked him out. Aljo was on the way to being the bantamweight goat, and Murad was just his little bro. You have TJ Dillashaw, who ended his career on a very, very sad note with his fighting with one shoulder. And then in my mind, you
Hmm.
have Uriah Faber and Dom Cruz. Dom Cruz is my bantamweight goat up until this month, maybe. I just think in the history of the division, no one has dominated like Merab. He doesn't even get hurt. He fights every 3 months, if that, at that point. He's fighting on almost every single pay-per-view. It's really insane to see. And even though I don't love the lack of damage he does, he's changing his style and he's remaining active, which you can't discredit it anymore. In the past, I was not happy with him, but he's fighting so much, and he almost knocked out Sandhagen in the second round, I think it was. I thought the fight was gonna get called almost, so you really can't take anything against Marab. If he's not your bantamweight goat, I don't know who is.
Yeah. I mean, he's fighting Jan in a rematch later this year, December 6th, which is crazy to think about, less than 2 months from today. And I mean, like you said, he's gone through pretty much every fight recently has been a decision, but he may not be doing that damage, but he's controlling the fight. Like he's not just going out there and just lying on top of him for no reason. Like he's going out there, he's getting takedowns. He's continuing to be active throughout the fight. I mean, we're not seeing points where he's being taken off of the other guy, whoever he's fighting at this point, whether it was Sandhagen, whether it was Umar, whether it was Sean O'Malley, because he's not being active. Like he's going out there and he's just continues to go and go. I mean, I forget who it was talking about it before, but Marab went through 5 full rounds, like 100% full rounds, full contact the same day. that he had this championship fight, which is insane. Because who knows, maybe he could have broke his nose or something. He could have got hurt. He doesn't care. He's just going to go out there and continue to get it done. And like we said, no one comes in out 100% for any fight, but I don't know how, but Marab just comes in at a different level for every single fight.
Yeah, I mean, he truly dominated that fight. And I saw the same thing where against, I think it was O'Malley or Umar in this fight, that he was doing 5 rounds of pretty hard grappling, like wrestling intensive sparring before his title fights, which, like, I can't imagine anybody else has ever done that. Merab just has the best cardio in UFC history, and he knows it, honestly. The chain wrestling he does is an exact byproduct of that. He knows no one can keep up his pace for 25 minutes. Sandhagen had one of the most successful round ones against the champion Marab, and it didn't matter at all. It really didn't matter. And Sandhagen, I think that was exactly as the fight was expected. All these 49-46 kind of fights with Marab where maybe Sean O'Malley lands one kick and gets lucky. Maybe Sandhagen, has one good combo and wins the round. But no one has been able to dominate Marab as champion. Like, not even for 5 minutes in a full round. So I don't know who can beat Marab. I really can't name a single name right now. When you look at the division, Umar and Peter Yan are the only two guys I think that have any chance of even hurting Murad, maybe. And obviously, we saw Umar get embarrassed in their first fight. So, one thing I would like to see about the Jan Murad fight is that Jan, he said it himself, he was injured in that fight. I know he said earlier, you don't get excuses, but I went back at it. He only threw 5 punches. Jan is one of the best boxers in the UFC. He only threw 4 or 5 punches with his right hand in the entire fight, the first time they fought. And obviously, I think he got taken down 54 times in that first fight, which is, that's not great. But this could be, I'm not going to say Jan beats Merab. I don't think he does, but I think Jan's going to give Merab the hardest fight maybe he's gotten as a champion.
Yeah, one thing I do want to talk about, one guy that I do think could beat him, but we won't see now because of the weight classes. I think if Ilya stayed at 145 and Marab went up to 145, I do think Ilya would have been able to catch him at some point. I think Marab easily could have won that fight, if he committed to grappling and everything, but I think Ilya probably could have got him, but I don't think we'll ever see that fight now. But one thing that I wanted to bring up, talking about him and Ilya, and we just talked about Pereira. We have 4 guys right now that you could argue are all top 20 guys all time at champion with Ilya, Marab, Alex Pereira, and Pantoja. Where would you kind of rank these guys overall? Because I know we're going to talk about how Marab is getting pretty close to being in that top 10, top 5 conversation all time. Where would you rank him amongst guys like Pantoja, Pereira, and Ilya?
Are you saying for current pound for pound or all-time GOAT rank?
I'm talking all time because I think these 4 guys could easily make an argument they're all top 25, if not top 20 all time.
Yeah, I mean, one thing for sure is that they're all obviously in the conversation for it. They're all in very different circumstances. So Pereira, sadly, is never gonna be the GOAT unless he has a crazy run at 40 years old. But the knockout from Izzy, the loss at
Big
Ankalaev,
Onk.
Ankalaev, yeah, big Ank. Um, that hurts him a lot, especially coming in the UFC that late in his career. But my personal GOAT rankings have GSP number one, John Jones. It's kind of like a 1A GSP, 1B John Jones. John Jones, if you lose to Dom Reyes, I don't know how you can be the GOAT, man. I'm just gonna say it.
Well,
But
let's look at the scorecards because John
okay,
Jones
either
won.
way.
He's
But
undefeated. 12 to 6 elbows aren't a thing anymore, so that should be get revoked. But
yeah, but anyway, when the UFC kind of merged out WEC, they brought in these lighter weight classes like 135. Uh, you saw the rise of the division, and no one cared about it back then. And Mighty Mouse was getting like pennies for 10 title defenses in a row, I think, something like that. And
mhm.
Marab is like Sean O'Malley might have been the guy that was like, boom, there's power in this division, there's some stars, but Marab is the one that's really like putting his name down in the record books. And if he keeps doing this, like Man, it's really hard to put a younger like or a lighter weight class guy there with the historic stuff, but my at least in my mind, current pound for pound rankings, let alone GOAT rankings, I have Merab at number two. I have Ilya one, Merab two, Islam three. And if Merab beats Petr Yan, even in a decision, I'm putting him number one. The activity, the way he's never even been hurt, like I just think Merab has the best case out of any of them for really climbing the GOAT rankings and maybe even being the GOAT in the future. Who knows?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like you said, I mean, Pantoja has been great as a champion. Obviously, with the lighter weight classes, it does make it a little bit harder. He does have a good fight coming up. We're going to see Marab and Pantoja both on the same card later this year against some pretty competitive guys. I think, like you said, with Pereira, with those two losses, that kind of does hurt him. I think if there's a guy that could become the best all time in the UFC that's still active and still young is Ilya. Just because, I mean, if he continues to move up these ranks, if he ends up fighting the winner of JDM versus Islam and somehow beats them, like, I don't know. Ilya's on a very fast track to becoming one of the best all time because of his performances. But Marab, if we're talking about time wise, I mean, if he's going to have four more fights again next year, or at least three or four fights next year as a champion, then he's going to be entering those top 10 conversations.
Yeah, and Merab's only 34. If he fights 4 or 5 times a year like this, like he could do it within 1 or 2 years. He still would
Yeah.
not be out of his prime by then. And with
Yeah, I
his
mean, he could
cardio,
even fight more than that if he wants to,
like
more than
five or
four or
six
five,
times, or
maybe even more if he wanted to.
like 7 or 8 times,
Probably less.
probably 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Anyway, but it's really Ilya has that it factor that only the entire time I've been watching MMA, it's like Conor McGregor, Khabib, Islam,
John
Ilya,
Jones,
John Jones, and maybe Alex Pereira
Kevin Holland.
before he lost. Not Kevin Holland. But he really does have that it factor. But I could see he met his wife in Miami. I could see some struggles here from
What do
Ilya.
you mean by that?
You met him in Miami, nothing. But I could see like Ilya looks untouchable at the moment, but so did McGregor at one point in time. I could see Ilya kind of not reaching that GOAT status that some people think he has a potential for. But when you go through back to Merab, I think he has the best case for the GOAT rankings. I think he's number two pound for pound, about to be number one. But what the fight that I would like to see is I'm just gonna say it. I think he beats Petr Yan. I think
Hmm.
maybe he could fight Umar in 2 months after that. Who
I
knows
think
when?
I think it depends, obviously, if Umar beats Mario Bautista or not. I think that's the number one
Yeah.
contender fight.
I would be shocked if he lost to Mario Bautista, but I would agree with you. And
That's the
then
number one contender fight.
yeah, and then I would love to see
Sean
another one
O'Malley.
of the only other super fights. Nope, not the trilogy. One of the only other super fights, which would be versus Pantoja. If
Hmm.
Pantoja beats Van, which I also spoiler, I think he does. I think we would see Pantoja versus Merab. That would be an insane fight. One of the best fights you could possibly make right now.
I mean, if he doesn't fight him, then would you want him against um, Song Yadong Song?
I mean, if Song, I think he's gonna fight O'Malley maybe in January. I think that's my guess.
Yeah, hypothetically. Or the
Yeah,
winner of Henry Cejudo versus Peyton Talbot.
with that. I mean, Song Yudong, I love his striking, but struggled with Cejudo a lot. But we can move on to
Yeah.
another banger fight. This was one of my favorite fights I think I've ever seen. Fight of the year contender, Yuri
Yep.
Prohaska beating Khalil Roundtree just in an absolute bloodbath. Yuri is one of the people forget, man. Before Alex Pereira, he was the boogeyman of light heavyweight. He was Alex Pereira. He came into the
Hmm.
UFC, no one ever hurt him. He's blocking punches with his face. And then he comes in there and he's brutalizing people. Pereira, I mean, wow, there's levels to the game, but Roundtree, man, he's taking a lot of damage. That was an incredible fight. Yuri is just so uh, one of the reasons I love the fight is the whole storyline of Yuri learning how to bring his hands up, having head movement, how to fight in an orthodox style. And he goes out there, and Roundtree, who's very traditional Muay Thai stance, loves point fighting, is kind of kicking his butt. And then round three, Yuri, he has like a religious like experience in the corner, and he goes out there and he's hitting the wrong buttons, he's jumping around, he's smacking him around, they're trading elbows right in front of each other, and he beats him up, he bloodies him up. It was an impressive performance from Yuri, and he's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. I think if Pereira never existed, I really don't see anyone beating Yuri. Like he just goes out there every time. And this fight, I mean, we were talking about it, and the commentators were talking about it too. In that first few rounds, it looked like he had no idea what he was doing. Like his stance was really wide out. It looked like there was something wrong with his legs. And then the third round, like you said, he just got possessed and decided, oh, I guess I got to go knock him out now. And I mean, we're talking about a guy that has only since 2016 has only lost to Alex Pereira. And this guy fought in Ryzen for a long time and would fight multiple times a year. I mean, since 2013, he's lost four times, twice to Alex Pereira. That is just insane to think about. Like, I think if Alex Pereira wasn't in the UFC, I really don't see anyone beating Yuri, and that is sad for him, obviously. But like, I don't know. I mean, what's next for him? I think at this point, I think he's got to fight Big Onk, considering I don't see a trilogy happening. I think if Pereira stays in the division, he's fighting Alberg or he's moving up to heavyweight. So maybe it's for the championship against Ankalaev, but I guess if Pereira doesn't fight Alberg, then you make Yuri versus Alberg. If he gives the belt away or they want to make an interim championship, then I think the fight is against Alberg. But if Alex fights Alberg, then he has to fight Ankh.
Yeah, and with Jan Blachowicz just being announced to fight Bogdan Guskov, and I'm gonna assume that Pereira, he's still cutting a lot of weight at 205. I don't know how he ever made middleweight. I'm gonna assume Pereira, I think he's almost 39, maybe he is 39 already, is moving
Mm,
up to heavyweight. We're gonna see. Uh, I mean, the belt's gonna be vacant. I think in the next few
mm.
months. Whether Pereira fights, I know he broke his foot. If he fights at the White House card, if he fights Aspinall or John Jones, whatever happens, I think the only real contenders are Yuri, Ankalaev, and Olberg. And I think Yuri. I'm really not a big fan of Olberg. I know he just flatlined Dom Reyes, which is like not many guys like John Jones can do that, but. I think that Yuri versus Ankalaev would be an exceptional fight to make for the vacant belt at light heavyweight. You throw that on a pay-per-view. I think that'd be a fantastic fight.
Yeah, I think, I mean, talking about these guys, like you said, I think depending on what happens, if Pereira, I just hope it doesn't get held up, I guess. And I think with with Pereira being injured, I think you could make a case where they just make an interim championship. And if he does go and fight at heavyweight, then he just gives up the belt when he fights at heavyweight at the White House card. So I hope that they either make an interim championship fight, not within the next few months, because Yuri just went through that 3 round war, but when he's ready to fight in whenever, February or March, against either, I would say Alberg for the championship.
Yeah, and either way, there's a lot of fun fights to be made at the top of light heavyweight. There's really that trilogy of guys, that podium of tier one guys that are Olberg, Yuri, Ankalaev.
Hmm.
Maybe honestly, Blachowicz is such a forgotten guy. Like he debatably beat Pereira if you put the storylines aside. What Dana White, whoever he probably wanted Pereira to win at the time. I'm not gonna say I'd have to rewatch the fight, but it was a very close fight, no matter who you think won. Those are the top guys, and there's just not other guys moving up anymore. Like Jamal Hill is just clearly not that good. Khalil Roundtree is clearly he's just the level below. He's never gonna be champion. And going into Khalil Roundtree, the Pereira fight in this one, like he is taking so much damage. He's faced multiple knockouts throughout his career in the UFC alone. And I like his striking. I like his mentality of like he has to do it. He has something he has to prove inside of him, but he takes this is gonna sound harsh to say, but I almost think when he's in there, he kind of wants the punishment, the damage, and he's like, "This is how tough I am." In the last few fights, he's just taking it, standing there and taking it, and then he kind of gets TKO'd. Yeah, yeah, I said it, but he just gets TKO'd just every time on the brute of consciousness. Like he's always semi-conscious, just getting his head shattered, his face scarred and bloody and destroyed. And I just don't want Roundtree to do that anymore. And I don't think I'm gonna be honest. I think he has like maybe one more fight and he should just retire. He's taking way too much
Um,
damage. I think one fight could be interesting is a fight with Johnny Walker, a rematch, something like that. Johnny Walker's trying to move up, but Roundtree should just give up on fighting for the belt and honestly just have some fun fights and call it a day.
yeah, I agree. I don't want to see him go through this anymore, man. It's just tough.
Yeah, it's very tough.
So next up, Zalal beat Josh Emmett. What do you think is his ceiling at featherweight right now? I don't know. He's one of those guys that I haven't really been completely sold on. Like, I know he has four submission wins in his past four fights, and he's continued to kind of to move up a little bit. He's beat Calvin Cater. He's beat Josh Emmett. Um, I would like to see him go and have like a real true test next. I don't think he's going to be a contender for the belt. I could be wrong. This could come back to hurt me, but I don't know. I guess a guy that I would put him up against that would be interesting, if he's going to be the submission threat that he has been, would be a guy in Aljamain Sterling, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all, and I feel the same way. I just don't like Zalal's ceiling. He's a very talented guy, and since he got cut in 2021 or 22, he's really bounced back in a great way. And his grappling has been great. He's been finding very creative chokes against like Jack Shore. He had an incredible knee up the middle, and then followed it up with that. Emmett just verbally tapped out to start the fight. I just don't love. He's just one of those guys that's going to get those wins by just fighting smart, circling the cage, finding space, staying outside of range, and getting a sub if the other guy's tired. And I don't think that will really give him a title shot, but featherweight's in a really weird spot where Lerone Murphy could be fighting Volk for the belt. It could be Movsar Evlaev. I really don't know yet, but I would like to see Zalal like Emmett is not a smart fighter. He likes to wait for that overhand. He likes to knock people out, send them to nap time. And Zalal's obviously against Calvin Cutter it was the same exact thing. He's like, if you're gonna wrestle me, I'm just gonna stand here and just point. I'm just gonna point fight you, and I'm gonna win the fight. I don't care if I'm not gonna get 50K for performance of the night. I'm gonna win the fight. And that works into a point. You can't be a champion really doing that, and just getting no fans and no excitement to your name. Dana hates that. So I think Aljo would be a great fight. They do have pretty similar styles, but if he wants to move up again, like if Lerone Murphy is not getting booked to fight against Volk, if Yair Rodriguez, I want a striker that's gonna show Zalal the actual levels you need to be champion. And I think when he hits that level, that top three ranked guys, I think he's gonna get hurt, and I think he's gonna lose all momentum.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there's really anyone in that top area right now that he could beat, but maybe he could prove us wrong. And finally, on the final fight of the main card, or I guess the first fight of the main card, we saw Joe Body Bags Pfeiffer from Philadelphia went out and beat Magomedov, Mr. Magomedov, one of the Magomedovs in the Magomedov family. We talked about this a little bit before the last time that he fought. I know that we both kind of had him in that's still like that prospect area. Maybe not a contender, but would you change? Does this win? Does this change anything for you? Would you put him in that contender spot? Do you think that he should go out and get like a higher ranked fight in his next fight just to test him, or do you think that he I guess like we worded it, a one trick pony. Even though he did go out and get the submission, as he is known, obviously for being a knockout artist before, but now with this win, that definitely helps him and can progress him forward as well.
Yeah, 100%. That was what I thought of Jack Pie or Joe Pfeiffer just being a one-trick pony. He has a right hand. He'll just stand there, he'll let you hit him, and he'll wait for that right hand. He kind of claimed fame was being a stronger puncher than Ngannou, and it very well could be true. He has so much power. If you saw the fight with Kelvin Gastelum, I mean, Gastelum has an incredible chin, but anyone else would have been knocked out cold with the way he was getting hit by Pfeiffer. And he turned that body cam off, and he is just assaulting people in the octagon. But the fight itself changes nothing for me because that was his second career submission, so he is working on different parts of his game. But Abus Magomedov is the same fighter every fight. He gasses out, he goes for a finish, doesn't get it, and then he kind of gives up. He rolls on his back and gives up. So that fight really didn't do much for me. It put Pfeiffer into the rankings, but I still want to see him striking wise develop more. His grappling does look improved, but striking wise, I want to see like combos. He lost to Jack Hermanson by just being so easy to read. He had nothing going on, no game planning, nothing set up. That he had a boring loss, and it's almost like, oh, what happened? It happened again with Magomedov round one. Pfeiffer's like out there like, oh, I'm just gonna punch this guy till he is asleep in the octagon. And it doesn't happen, and then he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And it takes him 5 or 10 minutes every fight to realize like, okay, I gotta set up chokes. I gotta set up my striking. You gotta find openings. So I don't like that Pfeiffer is just not developing his thinking, if he's developing his game at all. But now that he's ranked, I want a really big fight out of him. Someone like Roman Dolidze or Paulo Costa, some bigger guys, physically and name-wise, that aren't just gonna get hit and fall over. Guys that are just big bodies to take the damage. And if Piper fought someone like MVP, I do not want MVP fighting down, but hypothetically, if he did, I think MVP would jab his face off, and Pfeiffer would have no idea what to do, and he would try and bring it to the ground. So, Pfeiffer's a name that he should be doing so much more to cement himself as still a prospect, but he's just not to me.
Yeah, one guy that you mentioned, Paulo Costa. I do think he should fight up in the rankings. Costa's 13th. I think that makes sense. I don't think you give him someone in the top 10 right now. And Costa, coming off of that last win, if he's going to go on a run, Costa, one more run, this would be a good opportunity for him, but it would also be a good opportunity for Mr. Joe to go out there and if he gets a win, can prove it against a guy that's been around for a while. So, it's one of those fights that gets him a bigger name. A bigger name fight is definitely something he's looking for right now. And I think that would be good for his career. Or a guy, like you said, in Roman Dolidze, who knows? Maybe even a guy like Cannonier, which I still think, even though Cannonier is old now, but somehow just keeps going. A guy that we just talked about in Khalil Roundtree who gets beat up every single fight. I don't know how Jared Cannonier is still fighting at this point, but that could also be an opportunity for him.
Yeah. And then that was it for our 320 breakdown. But we have one more thing. One more thing we added. We thought it would be great to have segments brand new to
Hmm.
episode 13. You guys are the first to hear it out. So if you do enjoy it, comment down below. Let us know what you think if you want more segments. But we're going to rip a shock of the night, a flop of the night, and a prelim fighter of the night. So all three, pretty much what it sounds like. Shock of the night. This is the only time we're going to explain this, by the way, not every single episode, but shock of the
Yeah.
night is like the overperformance of the night. Some guy that you just shocked with how good they did, how dominant they looked, how much better you thought they looked than they were gonna before, and then flop
Yana
of the night.
Santos.
Exactly like that. That's don't spoil it now, but
Sorry.
and then our flop of the night is pre obviously as stated a big flop. Whether it's their PR, their hype before the fight, their performance, their opponent, the biggest underperformance of the card, and then the prelim of the night, whether it's a prospect or a vet who's showing out, just anyone on the prelims that someone who you won't want to miss. The next pay-per-view, you're gonna look for their name and you don't want to miss their fight. There's so many killers in the prelims that most people aren't even watching. And if you want to get ahead of the curve on these prospects, will help you do that. So, starting off, my shock of the night was Alex Pereira. Everyone knows how good he is, but wow, that KO. I thought Ankalaev might have been that guy, that kryptonite, that Dagestani, where it's just like, man, he can't beat this guy. His takedown is too good. His striking is too good. But Alex went out there, finished him round one. So my shock of the night goes to Alex Pereira for just going out there and just dropping Ankalaev, making him shoot a takedown right at his ankles, and finishing him with the elbows in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we're going to have a lot of cards as we go on, where we may not agree on all of these, but for all three, we did agree for this. And like you said, I mean, he finished him in a minute and a half, and he got him with a big shot right in that face and made him shoot on his legs within a minute. And at that point, it was over for Big Unk. But Pereira just went out there and performance of the night, shock of the night. I thought he was going to win. I was pretty confident he was going to win, despite the odds and everything kind of against him. But I did not expect him to go out and win like this. And next up is the disappointment of the night. I mean, we're talking about a guy who probably should be cut from the UFC. A minus 300 favorite, Patchy Mix, absolutely terrible performance. Um, Split decision, but I mean, it shouldn't have gone to a split decision, right? He should have won. It should have been either a unanimous decision. He should have finished him. He should have done something. And he should have done almost anything different than he did. Like he got 5 takedowns. That's cool. But you know, he was put in 3 different submission attempts. He didn't land nearly as many strikes and just was not a very good fighter. And I think he should honestly be cut from the UFC at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he can go back to Bellator. The lights are too bright. My flop of the night is also Patchy Mix. Since his opponent, Jakub Wilklauts, a name that not many people even know, he popped up when I saw Dana was signing all this Polish fighters, but he's not a five-star prospect. He is good, but it's not a guy that Patchy Mix should really just be getting beat by. And that was a pretty, Patchy Mix was an easy guy to bet against. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, you make Mario Bautista look like Floyd Mayweather, like you have serious problems. Patchy Mix stands there with flat feet and doesn't move his head and just gets hit in the face. And the most defense he does is he has like an angry like scowl. He doesn't actually fight back or throw counters. And MMA Nerds 2023, 24. Patchy Mix was #1 bantamweight in the world. You go from that to losing to Wicklaus and Bautista in the UFC back to back. Uh, I think you give Patchy Mix one more fight, and honestly, he's the can now. You're no longer the big cross promotional superstar. I want to feed somebody to Patchy Mix. I don't know who it is. It could be Francis Ngannou for all I care. But Patchy Mix, someone I would like is maybe like a Charles Johnson who's in the rankings, wouldn't fight down, or basically any other bantamweight. But maybe Marab fights Patchy Mix next. But I'm just so sick of Patchy Mix just doing absolutely nothing out there. So pretty embarrassing performance by him, and he's getting worse every single fight. But our prelim of the night. My prelim of the night is Ateba Gautier. He is a top 3 prospect in MMA, in the UFC especially. He really earns the nickname of middleweight Ngannou. He's an assassin. He is just, when I saw him in the Contender Series, he was only 22 at the time, fighting out of London, and he looks so raw. He was the underdog coming into the card, and he just showed raw power and just striking. Some guys just have that. And now that he's training more and more, he's learning more. He is still so young. This guy has 15 years left, top level MMA, if he wants to. So being under 25, being that talented with that much power, the UFC is feeding him cans. I do feel bad about that part, just feeding him guys to get knocked out. He looked like a Scooby-Doo villain, like wobbling around there against Gautier, but it shows his star power. You do not want to miss this guy fight. He has brutal knockouts every fight, and he's only 23. He was in the Contender Series last year, but I would be in favor of a Teba Gottier getting a ranked fight. I know Marvin Vettori's booked, but I think that'd be a really fun fight. Test Vettori's chin, put him against Gottier, see if the best power hitting prospect goes against one of the best chins in the UFC. See what happens, but I'm a huge fan of Gottier.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, one of the better prospects in the UFC right now. Unfortunate that, his opponent pulled out and they kind of had to just throw someone in there at that point. But I hope he continues to get good fights and he has the power to continue to move up. Um, so next up, we can talk about our upcoming UFC fight night this weekend, which is going to be in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and we do have the return of Kevin Holland on this card. We have some other fighters on here. RDR versus Brendan Allen. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be Fluffy Hernandez, but still a decent test for RDR. Kevin Holland is going to be coming back, like I just said, against Jake Matthews. So that'll be a good fight. Just kidding. That's who he thought he was going to be fighting. He's actually fighting Mike Malott. I don't really know who told him that he was fighting Jake Matthews, and I don't know if that was like just a joke or not, but I genuinely think that's who he thought he was going to fight because that's just kind of a random name to throw out there. But yeah, he's going to be fighting the hometown hero, Mike Malott. Cheeto Vera versus Zahabi should be another great fight. And there's some other decent guys on this card as well. I don't know if there's anyone that you want to highlight. Um, but this is honestly a pretty decent card across the board, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll say for sure. I was way more excited for Fluffy RDR. Those are the only two guys that have any chance of beating Kamaev, in my opinion. So that would have been the best number one contender fight too. Those guys duke it out, and I'm so high on RDR and Fluffy. I think they're honestly both very underrated. Fluffy especially, but Brendan Allen's a little bit of a less exciting fight. I do not like Brendan Allen. I hope for middleweight's sake, I hope RDR wins that fight so he can take on Kamaev. Maybe show off that grappling. Kevin Holland, little bro, does not get that Jake Matthews credit anymore. I'm sorry, buddy, but you got to win more fights for that. He gets Mike Malott. Mike Malott has a lot of trouble in Canada against lanky black guys. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Got KO'd by Neil Magny, by the way.
Hey, Neil Magny is tied for the second most wins in UFC history, by the way.
There you go. There's a stat right there.
24 wins in UFC history, by the way. So,
Okay, well, one of them was Mike Malott, but Kevin Holland, as you know, he is our namesake. We are all betting on Kevin Holland for sure. We will all be betting a lot of money on Kevin Holland to win by KO, but this fight will surely stop him from getting cut if he wins. If he does win, but we will win that fight. Either
we
way,
will.
we will win that fight. And then there's really not much else on the card that I love. The Canadian cards have never been great. Danny Barlow is not a terrible prospect, but one guy I would like to highlight, the only other guy, is Azamat Bakayev. He kind of reminds me of like a middleweight Marab, like not just because they look alike, but he is so dominant on the ground. He ragdolls very good wrestlers. Uh, so he's fighting Bulgaria, former kickboxer, so that's going to be a very, very fun fight. You don't want to miss that one. But that's about it for the card. And then moving on to a better card.
Oh,
One more thing.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we fully preview the Kevin Holland fight
Yeah.
just a little bit because he will be turning 33 November 5th.
Right.
Just in case you guys wanted to write that down. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we did spend a second on this because that is the whole point of the podcast is to talk about Kevin Holland. And that last fight against D-Rod doesn't really count. So this will be his fifth fight so far this year. I don't think we're going to get to six, unfortunately, unless he beats him in the first round. Holland is the underdog right now, unfortunately. But he said that he thought he was fighting Matthews, Jake Matthews. It's no big deal. The guy's a wonderful fighter. Talking about Mike Malott, he's just a step behind the level of competition that I am, and he's two steps behind the level of competition I usually lose to. So that means that he better win this fight because if not, I don't know.
Yeah, that would be very bad to lose to someone 2 levels below you. But moving
It's
on
not
to
going to happen.
UFC 321, we have the best heavyweight matchup of all time: Chris Barnett versus Hamdi El Dalab. It's gonna be a banger matchup on the prelims. You do not want to miss that card for the heavyweights.
Mm-mm.
Some are calling it the Rumble in the Jungle. It's gonna be the next Muhammad Ali, but the other guys on the card, we can also talk about Tom Aspinall taking on Cyril Gahn for the heavyweight belt. Tom Aspinall is getting his career ruined by John Jones. This is his time to get his legacy back and beat Cyril Gahn. Gahn lost to Volkov, who's now fighting on more of a number one contender fight against Shelton Almeida. So this is a good heavyweight card, but I just would rather. I do feel bad for Volkov. He's fighting way earlier on the card, and then you got to see the guy that you just beat fight for the belt. That does suck for him, but only the only other fight to notice before we get into talking to you about Aspinall is Umar Nurmagomedov is fighting the prospect killer Mario Bautista. Oh yeah,
There's another championship fight on here.
what's up?
There's
What's
another
up?
championship fight on here, the co-main event.
Oh, Chris Barnett. No, that's not a championship fight.
No,
That
no,
is
no, no. Mackenzie Dern is fighting for the strawweight
so.
championship.
As I was saying, Mario Bautista, the prospect killer, is taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. That's going to be a very fun fight. I think Umar smokes him in every single way, and then he will move on to maybe Marab after.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about cousin Umar at this point. Like he should win this fight, but I don't know where his head's at. That good reference to a good song right there. But yeah, I think as much as I don't really like Mario Bautista, and I know a lot of people could probably agree with that, he doesn't really care what anyone thinks, and he just continues to go out there and win every time. So cousin Umar should win. Will he win? I guess we don't really know. Volkov did beat Cyril Gahn. Like that, I think I truly believe that he beat him in that fight. Dana White took him aside after, and Cyril Gahn left the Octagon when they were announcing it because he thought he lost, by the way. Um, and Dana White said, "Don't worry, Volkov, we'll set you up with something." So I think they set him
You
up
never
with some
want to hear
front.
that from Dana. You never want
Yeah,
to.
no, they definitely set him up with some front row seats to watch the main event. But yeah, Cyril Gahn coming back from his Paw Patrol duty, is going to be fighting up against Tommy Cutlets here. So we'll see what happens in this fight. I know Aspinall is a pretty big favorite. And I think what we can look at right here is an easy number one contender fight and an easy main event. Obviously, there's a championship fight in between that I'll let you talk about. But I think realistically, what we could see is maybe Almeida versus Tom Aspinall if he can squeak out a win against Gahn next.
So I have a few things here. I'm gonna start out with Jandaroba versus Mackenzie Dern. I have about 2 pages of notes if you're gonna give
Okay.
me an hour to go over it, but
Yeah.
I don't know how that is possibly a championship level fight. Shandero was not bad at all. She can see people coming at her from both ways. But Mackenzie Dern, I am so sick of her. She's not, I don't know how she's getting the title shot right here, but Zhang Wei Li moving up. I'm not gonna lie. I think two women's divisions would be the perfect number. They both have 15 ranked, very good fighters. Three is just too many. I'm kind of sick of it. But that's all I got for that. You don't want to miss looking at Mackenzie Dern, I guess. But Cyril Gahn versus Tom Aspinall is going to be a very, very fun fight. I mean, Cyril Gahn got manhandled like a baby versus a pretty old heavyweight John Jones. And Tom Aspinall has very, very good and aggressive striking, very good grappling, and hasn't been tested as much because he knocks everyone out in the first minute or two of his fight. So I think this is the first time Aspinall is not gonna get a first 2 or 3 minute win. It's gonna be the toughest fight of his career, but I think he is gonna get the win over Gahn here. I think his striking is gonna be better as well as his grappling, and Gahn is gonna be smothered and have nowhere to go.
Yeah, I mean, it did take him 2 rounds to beat Arlovsky, so that did take a while. And he did blow his knee out against Curtis Blades
Okay,
within the
you're bringing
first
up old
15.
news. You're bringing up old news.
And it took him 4 minutes for an armbar against Volkov. So they're not all within the first minute, but
Yeah.
I think, he has been sitting on his couch forever, so he will be well rested, over a year and a half at this point. So he should go out there and win against Gon. Cyril Gon is just, I don't even know what to think of him at this point. Um, like I'm trying to think of a comp for him in other sports. It's just like a guy that somehow became a superstar. I don't really know how. Maybe it's because he's an international guy and in France they like him and he was supposed to be good. But he's just like got to a point where, like, I don't know. He lost to John Jones. That kind of derailed all his hype. And then came back, knocked out Spivak, which was like, okay, that was cool. Lost to Volkov, but now gets another title fight. Like, I don't know. Tied to it, I think if we were in the good timeline, tied to Avasa should have beat him and he should have fought John Jones for the heavyweight championship.
Hey. Some would say that is the good timeline. Some would say we're in the good timeline. But either way, the timeline moving ahead, we have a pretty terrible, maybe one of the worst fight cards ever of Fight Night. Steve Garcia versus David Onama. I like Steve Garcia a lot. Very underrated striker. I'm good. I'm chill with Onama, but these are not. This is kind of like a Dana White Contender Series card, like full of their guys. Dante Johnson is a very promising guy, but really not a great fight there. Waldo Cortez Acosta is like a fake heavyweight, and Tom
Yeah.
Aspinall's boy will be taking him on. But if you have anything there, anything on Bonfim versus Brown, these are pretty pathetic cards. So
Yeah, no, I'll let these marinate. We can talk about these more in the next episode after we talk about the recap of UFC 321. We'll let these marinate. We'll let them go out and um, get maybe some better fights after. But there is one more thing that I did want to talk about. Unfortunately, a fighter did have to. He did get let go from the UFC, unfortunately, after his last fight got canceled. The guy that we talk about a lot, from a family that we talk about a lot. So I just want to say my best wishes to Justin Tafa, who unfortunately could not make the weight cut at 265 and got cut from the UFC.
prayers up.
And
Everyone knows.
265 is hard to cut to, so I understand.
It's very hard. I'm praying for him. He might be still in the hospital when he eats all those hospital donuts in the lobby. If he's doing more shoeies with Tai Tuivasa, it is very hard to cut all that weight. So we are praying for Tai Tuivasa. Also, just for type 2 diabetes, for cholesterol issues,
Yes.
many things of that matter. Both of the Toffa bros, prayers up for them.
Yeah, prayers up for them. Um, Unfortunately, yeah. So that is sad. But I think that's all that we have for this episode. So we will be seeing you guys very soon. We will not be fooling the internet for another month again. Don't worry. Uncle Dana has blessed us again with another UFC card, another UFC pay-per-view. I guess it is still until the end of the year. With 321. October 25th. So we will see you guys at the end of the month, and hopefully you guys have a good time until then.
Peace.